Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a deeply poetic and, honestly, a profoundly philosophical text by an author named Su Feng. We're going to explore the absolute ultimate pursuit of all beings in the universe, the concept of freedom. It's a word we throw around all the time, right? But the source material we're looking at today strips away the politics and the everyday usage to look at freedom as this multi-layered, almost cosmic journey. It's totally fascinating, so let's jump right in and explore it together. Okay, let's dive into this. The author grounds the very foundation of freedom in some of the most high-stakes historical cries for liberty we have on record. Nearly 250 years ago, the American statesman Patrick Henry stood before the Virginia Parliament and delivered this ultimate ultimatum to escape British rule: live free or die. The original sentiment here was incredibly stark. Essentially, set me free or kill me. It really shows how freedom is this fundamental, absolutely non-negotiable human drive. And to really illustrate that unyielding desire, let's look at another powerful historical example. This is a quote from a 180-year-old Hungarian poem by Petőfi Sándor, written during the struggle to escape the slavery of the Austrian Empire. The source uses this poem to show how the pursuit of freedom is so incredibly paramount that it's elevated above even life and love themselves. To say both can be discarded if it's for freedom, it's a really intense, visceral starting point for our exploration. But that brings us to a really fascinating crossroads. We've seen these historical life-or-death battles for liberty, but what exactly is the freedom we are fighting for? I want you to ask yourself this direct question: what is freedom? Because as we pivot away from these historical cries for independence, the author begins to introduce a very specific, highly spiritual, and layered definition that goes way, way beyond simply not being locked in a prison. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the author defines freedom. It's not chaos, and it's definitely not selfishness. It's about doing as you please without breaking the fundamental rules of life. It's about fully blooming what the text calls the nature of Tathagata, which is a Buddhist concept of ultimate reality. Notice how it requires a deep, profound respect for your surroundings. True freedom means you do not interfere with others, and you absolutely do not harm nature. It is the unobstructed release of love, allowing you to gallop through time and space without shackles. Quite the breathtaking vision of existence, right? To put that into perspective, let's contrast two entirely different ways of existing. First, we have the kingdom of necessity, which is where, let's be honest, a lot of us spend our daily lives. Think of your stressful morning commute, just weighed down by trouble, pain, anxiety, and endless precautions. But contrast that heavy, restrictive existence with the kingdom of freedom. In this kingdom, those fears just completely evaporate. They are replaced by deep security, joy, and infinite relaxation. Setting up this stark contrast really sets the perfect stage for the upward journey the text invites us on. According to the author, reaching that kingdom of freedom is an ascension that happens in 3 distinct stages. Let's start with level 1, inner tranquility. And as you'll see, this journey begins entirely within. To describe this first level, the source material paints this incredibly vivid, almost cinematic picture. Just imagine deciding to barter your empty fame for the simple pleasures of good wine and sweet song, spending your life in mist and rain wearing a straw cloak. It really evokes the image of a person sitting in the dreamy shade of apricot flowers just playing a flute until dawn. It's the visual representation of someone who has completely abandoned the exhausting rat race for a simple, beautiful existence. The absolutely crucial point here is that level 1 freedom is achieved by stepping away from societal superficiality. By freeing yourself from vulgarity and being above the common, you find quiet peace. You are finally able to simply sit in tranquility and enjoy the wonderful, fleeting moments that nature provides. It is a deeply personal, inward-facing kind of liberation. Now, once you've managed to master that inner peace, the explainer moves forward to the second level. The focus shifts outward to the broader world for level 2, social harmony. To capture this second level, we get a brilliant, expansive metaphor. Instead of just a single person in a straw cloak, the scope of freedom expands dramatically. We now see thousands of crimson hills, we see eagles literally cleaving the air, and fish gliding through crystal clear waters. It envisions a million creatures under autumn skies, all contending in freedom. It shows how liberation includes all living beings existing together in a vibrant, shared ecosystem. The author's view here is that true social freedom is achieved when humanity cultivates such universal warmth that even the very mountains and rivers become intoxicated with joy. It's an act of making the entire world peaceful, embodying ancient wisdom, specifically referencing the legendary, virtuous ancient Chinese rulers Yao and Shun. When humanity achieves this collective harmony, the resulting peace resonates through the landscape itself.
Having harmonized with both society and nature, the text then takes us entirely beyond the physical world. Here we arrive at the final, most elevated level of the author's philosophical framework, Level 3, Spiritual Transcendence.
And this brilliantly illustrates what transcendence means in this context, jumping out of the three realms, not in the five elements. Basically, this means completely defying physical boundaries and material constraints. It is entering a state of pure, unadulterated spiritual liberation where you can freely travel across the vastness of the earth and beyond. At this spiritual climax, Level 3 freedom is defined essentially as a divine collaboration. The text explains that by listening to the teachings of gods, Buddhas, immortals, and saints, one walks the ultimate path. It represents a state where you gallop freely through the universe, entirely unconstrained, doing nothing less than transforming reality to create boundless, infinite beauty. So, as we transition into the conclusion of this explainer, we see that all of these steps lead us to the author's ultimate philosophical destination, the kingdom of freedom. Let's just summarize the grand architecture of the pathway laid out in the text. It begins with an active choice, walking out of the kingdom of necessity, leaving behind the fear and anxiety of daily survival. Then, we find that inner tranquility in nature at Level 1. Next, we expand that outwards to cultivate a peaceful, warm world at Level 2. And finally, we achieve that boundless spiritual transcendence at Level 3. It's an open invitation to take the author's hand, walk toward these free hills, and just enjoy the endless, wonderful time of life. So, what should you take away from all of this? We've been presented with a roadmap that really challenges us to look beyond our physical constraints. I want to leave you with this final, provocative question based on the journey we just explored. Look at the constraints in your own life right now. Are you stuck in the kingdom of necessity, battling daily anxiety? Have you found a moment of inner tranquility? Or are you actively cultivating peace in your community? Ask yourself, which level of freedom are you currently living in? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring your own path to the free hills.